bunch of paper here, and I don't know why we have so many. So. Now, what's the... Let's just put that on. Maybe we'll look at this one. Okay, good evening. Thank you for being patient. And I was just waiting to see if our 7th council member would come in a moment or two, but he may join us later. We've had a long day. Most of council started this morning at 9 o'clock. I woke up in Richmond for other conferences and started at 7:30. So we'll move along. We have an amended agenda that was circulated, and we have one more amendment that was handed out this evening, which is the actual bylaw for 8.1. And I'm also going to suggest that we move the community forest report, item 10.3, into the front of the meeting. So under item 3, so Mr. Bonder doesn't have to wait through 315 pages of agenda to get where he wants to get to. And we appreciate the visit. So with those two amendments, we'll move that one as well. So first, a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated, amended, and with the amendment of moving 10.3 up into item 3. Thank you, Councillor Wright, Councillor Inkster. And before we vote, are there any other amendments from staff or that we need to take note of? We have the 8.1, which is the bylaw. Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. That carries forward. And that means we can move directly to the community forest report, which for those that are following is page 210 of our new agenda, and it's item 10.3. It includes a quarterly report, and just thank you. And we welcome the chair of the Community Forest Board, Mr. Glenn Bondered, Chair and President.
Well, thank you. The red light says it's
a little
on.
Closer. I just want to remind all of us tonight, and myself in particular, to both keep the microphones close and to speak slowly, carefully, and in complete words and sentences, because I often don't do that. So I'm going to remind others, and Mr. Bondered is the first speaker as well.
I will try. Anyway, thank you very much for having us here. You've got the third quarter report that we have, and not a lot happened in the third quarter. We finalized some of the sales from our early of the year, and September 30th we had 9,000 cubic meters harvest volume sold versus a plan of 9,600. So the first part of the year was there, as we had thought. That was a cleanup from the Angus Creek logging area from the fourth quarter of last year. Pleasant surprise was we had a very good average sales value of $113 versus the $80 odd that we had thought, and that was a mixture of product and market, not anything that we did really unusually well. The cedar market has been good, and I think it'll stay well. There's certainly a demand in the States with the growing housing market. The fir is good, and the hemlock is still the bottom of the list, I guess is the best way to say it. You can sell it, but the mills here are reluctant to take it, and a lot of times the only place to sell it is export, which I know causes people concerns, but that is the facts. Cutting permits, we've been in the process of getting them, and I think the burn area is what our focus will be next. It's taken us a long time, and almost a year and a half to get the proper permits. And if you want a frustrating exercise, come and see us. It's not something that I really enjoyed, and I think my hat's off to Dave for his patience in doing this and going through all the hoops and everything. You would think that being a burn area, the remediation of that area would be top of everybody's list, but the paperwork still must be done. We think it'll be about 30,000 cubic meters. That is the guesstimate at this stage. How much is actually saleable is another question. And what we're looking at, I guess, is burned logs do not command the same price as a regular log. Sawmills are very reluctant sometimes to take it. The byproducts into the pulp and the paper is an absolute no-no. So we're looking at decreased sales value, probably a decreased recovery. A lot of the stuff would be not usable, therefore left in the bush. But our logging cost would still be of that what's been left. So the unit cost of what we sell will go up. Yeah, so that's it's like a triple whammy in that respect. And I think I'd like to say in September, we did have our Wood Expo, and Linda definitely was the key person there. And we had over 900 people. And already people are asking us about next year. You know, can I book, can I come, can I show my stuff? And that's will be the third annual. And I think it's one of those things where everybody comes in a bit surprised. You know, they see something new that they didn't know we did, or that the artists on the coast have done. And it has really, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes. So if you didn't get to see it, make a note that next year you better come and see it. Yeah. We're just in the middle, and we'll have our board meeting next week, and we will be finalizing our plans and budget for next year. Some of the provisos is the U.S. has got a good housing market. Despite what some of the election results have been, I think the housing market will continue. But we still have a softwood lumber dispute. So take your choice which way you want to put your crystal ball. But if the softwood lumber dispute does come in at the 25, 30, or 35% range, which it has done before, it could be a real problem for this industry. Not just for the sawmills, but also for the loggers, because the dominoes effect backwards up the chain will certainly hurt us. If you want to take a look at the financials, on the first page that we did, the retained earnings, actually we're still at the end of September 1.477 million, and that's not a lot of change from what we expected, and not a lot of change from the end of last year. So there's nothing really surprising there. We don't have any inventory left. I mean, there's 23,000 on those statements, but that's the end of September, so that's gone. Very few liabilities other than our accrued silviculture cost, and that is something that stays with us for about 15 years until such time as, you know, what we've planted has been deemed to be free to grow, which means it's no longer our responsibility. So at the end of the September 30th, we had $1.899 million in cash position. That we're now spending money. As of this week, the crews have gone up in the mountains for the burn area, so we're starting to spend money, and it'll be 3 or 4 months before we maybe see some sales from that. So it'll be a while, and we'll be running that cash down. So I don't have much else to say, other than it was a pretty quiet quarter, but if there's any questions.
Yes, Councillor Inkster, and we'll start.
U.S. market just planned for really large suburban wooden Trump houses. Just be ready for that. I was going to ask you about the burn area that you've referenced a number of times. It's unfortunate in a number of senses what happened, but also it was the burn cut into the cut. You've looked at replanting in the area, which is good, but what I wanted to ask you was, ecologically, what have you been told about the regeneration time and rate for that area? We all know that burns, and we've been told, those that follow what has happened in BC over hundreds of years, that fires actually lead to quicker regeneration. They actually take a lot of the trees, the seeds, and burst them open for replanting, but you guys went in there quicker. What have you been told about the forest regeneration? Because forests aren't always, as you know, about harvesting. It's also ecological. So yeah.
Well, I guess the burn would release some of the chemicals back into the soil, which should help. But I think until we get up there, and if we do the logging in the quarter, with the replanting will be in April, and we'll be able to see. I don't know, this time it was a surface burn, not a crown burn. So a lot of the soil or the organic matter is already gone, so that may impede the regrowth. And I think Dave is already talking about maybe doing some fertilizing, so we'll see. And I'd really leave that question to him. If you want an answer, I'll have him give you a more complete one.
Yeah, please. I'd love to hear what the rejuvenation rate will be for that that particular section of the Sunshine Coast, but also as part of your forest. You know, you get to be, in a sense, stewards of that particular of your cuts, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the Wood Expo the last 2 years, and I noticed that each year, while you've had some similar presenters or booth people or whatever, that each year you've also had some others. So I'm wondering if you've outgrown the space at the Seaside Center for next year. Because this year you used the upstairs as well and had,
We did it last year too, yeah.
okay.
I think it's one of those things where, do you want to be in a bigger area so it doesn't look like it's well attended, or do you want to limit the people and make it look like some interesting stuff? Because some of the people won't come back, obviously, so there will be newer people every year.
Okay.
I don't know, do you want to take over the senior center or something? But yeah, that's a question. I mean, we've tried to keep it within a scope, and first year we didn't know how many. We got about 600, I think, and then this year 900. And I was really surprised at that number, because that's 1 in 10 people in this area. Mind you, we had people down from Pender Harbor as well, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, amazing products. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
I didn't believe, I've been involved with the fiber and fungi exposition that was up in Pender Harbor, and we've done this and the art crawl, and we've had our art auction as well up in Pender. And I think one of the things that I see on this coast is that we have a great artist community, much like Denman has or something else, and somehow or the other, I think if we could pull it together even more, it would be a heck of an economic attraction. Because you got 2.5 million people 40 minutes away.
yeah. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you, and that is identified in our strategic plan. Culture and art is pretty important. I had one question, because I thought there was such good news in the retained earnings and the cash, because we're only at the end of the third quarter and we've got another 3 months to go, and then you answered that by saying we're going to be drawing it down and there's no inventory left. So that was actually bad news. Otherwise, I was looking for another 25% jump over the next quarter. So unfortunately,
It would be nice. I mean, if we had been able to do the burn area like we had wanted to earlier, we could be now into some, profitable timber, but no.
yeah. And just the usual reminder that I know the board is concerned about community support as we move into other areas of logging, and council is as well, to encourage and make sure that we continue to build community support for the operations that you have as they go into some more contentious areas as well.
Well, thank you. I think we've tried to, talk to people with that. We've gone through the regulation side of it with the band, and I think we've met all the requirements. So we're happy with what we've done.
Good. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here and the report. It really does help us to have these quarterly reports. We feel a much better connection with the direction. Sorry.
Sure. Okay. So one thing I'd say is that, we are open Monday through Friday, and I'm in the office Monday mornings. Linda's there half days, and Dave is here, there, and everywhere. But if you got any questions, just, pop us an email or come over and talk to us.
Good. And we'll encourage the community to do that as well. Councillor Inkster, just as a last minute then.
Glenn, I wondered what your thoughts are of a motion that came forward from council about a year ago on renaming that lake.
Or which side?
Renaming the lake?
You mean Wormy Lake?
Pardon me?
Wormy Lake?
Yes. Do you recall the discussion renaming it John Fair Lake and what your thoughts are?
We had not really talked about that at the board level at all.
Okay.
I mean, I know that is circulating, but
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask what, because
you would not get any objection from us, that's for sure.
and do we know if there would be any concern from the family or anything like that?
Kimmy and I have been playing telephone tag about issues, and I have not had a chance to ask her about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might be a good connection because I think we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Who actually has the authority to rename the
The
lake?
province does, but anyone can request. And
Oh,
I
I
think
see, okay.
request has gone through. So
Okay.
it's a provincial process. That's all it is.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving then to item 5, which is the adoption of the minutes. First, the item 5.1, which is, I'll try and get this closer, the minutes of the 4 p.m. regular council meeting of November 2nd, a motion to receive and adopt. Councillor Seegers and Councillor Lutz, all those in favor? That's carried. And second is item 5.2, minutes of the 3 p.m. special council meeting of November 9th, 2016. Motion to receive and adopt. Councillor Wright and Councillor Seegers, all those in favor? That's carried. And 5.3, minutes of the regular council meeting of November 16. Again, a one-pager. Motion to receive and adopt. Councillor Lutz and Shanks, all those in favor? That's carried. And item 5.4, minutes of the 7 p.m. regular council meeting of November 16th. Motion to receive and adopt. Councillor Seegers and Councillor Wright. Any errors or omissions in that report? Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. Page 11, at the top, first bullet. We looked to correct Gary Knorr's name, and it's still incorrect. Different spelling error this time. So it should be Garry.
I can remember my first email to Mr. Knorr as chair, and he wrote back Gary, Garry.
That's right.
So,
Yeah, that's the only error I had in there.
Councillor Wright.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. And on page 12, recommendation number 4, council grant permission to make renovations to the Sechelt Public Library as required.
Okay. These are great, minor. Yeah, it's nice when that's the only errors or omissions. All those in favor then? Any opposed? That's carried. And item 6, any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. Bottom of page 12. And this is not saying that this documentation is not here. I'm looking at the date. We were talking about having December 7th, potentially having the information coming to council that was presented to the Finance Committee meeting. And it isn't on this agenda, so I'm just wondering if we have a timing for when we anticipate that coming forward.
You can see what we're referring to there?
Thank you,
Yeah,
Your
Director
Worship.
of Finance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we've been working on actually 2 things. One is a detailed listing that the committee had suggested that be prepared and put into the mayor's office for council just to look at the real line-by-line budget and the changes that were made. We anticipate that being available by the end of this week. And then on next Wednesday at the FCD meeting, we plan to have a full budget book ready for council or the committee and the public. Just to let you all be referring to it in the report on the agenda, but it won't actually be distributed until the Wednesday because we're still working diligently to get it together.
Okay, perhaps, was there a misunderstanding? Because it was the report from the FCED committee, so it's actually already prepared. But because it had only been at the committee level, they were hoping it would also make sure that it's available to the public. So I think that's part of what happened there. Moving along, item 7.1, summary of recommendations from the 1 p.m. Parks and Public Works Committee. First, a motion to receive those summary minutes, Councillor Lutz and Councillor Seegers. All those in favor? And in terms of adoption, are there any of those recommendations we should pull out from those in the committee? Councillor Inkster, anything you'd like to pull out?
I would not. I just wanted to make special mention of number 10 as the 2 to 10 is introduced and passed at this council meeting. Special mention of number 10.
Okay. So you're moving adoption of recommendations 2 through to 10?
Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Wright. All those in favor? That's carried. And the one that was drawn attention to was the preliminary designs for improvements to the walkway and access at the Mission Park, Mission Point crosswalk, which at the moment is a dangerous crosswalk. We're glad to have it, but it's actually feels more dangerous than when we didn't have a crosswalk. It will soon be improved. And items 8, we're into bylaws at this point, and this is part of our amendments, so make sure we have the right issues. First is item 8.1, which is a request for decision from the Planning Department. And on page 23 of the agenda, first a recommendation to receive the report. Councillor Wright, Councillor Shanks, all those in favor? That's carried, and we'll turn to Aaron Thompson, our development planner, to speak to the report. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I just have a report ready here. So this is regarding the Gaines zoning amendment and the flood exemption. So as a refresher, this property located in West Sechelt along the shoreline with Georgia Strait, and it is bisected by Highway 101. You can see here, marked in red, roughly triangular in shape. So the current zoning is the PA1 with an OCP designation of residential, and the proposed zoning, which is sitting at third reading, which tonight is hoping for adoption, is R1. What we are proposing this report is the proposed flood exemption, which is required to reduce the setback from the ocean from the 15 meters to 7.5 meters for the single-family home and patio, and also for from 50 meters to 6 meters for one flight of stairs. Yes. More about the zoning. The public hearing for this was held on August 24th, 2016. It was read for second and third time in September on the 21st. It's been approved by the Ministry of Transportation and is now ready for adoption. Also, in previous reports, we had been talking about a development variance permit for reducing the setback from the ocean. However, a flood exemption under the Local Government Act is the more appropriate instrument for this proposal, and that is what's coming from this recommendation here. Again, just additional background information. If they were to build without the floodplain, the area would be significantly reduced to what is shown here in the red on the map. So this is, probably should have put this on 2 slides, but the recommendations is that Council adopts zoning bylaw 25, 1987, amendment bylaw number 25, 276, 2016 Gaines, and that that the geotechnical assessment from Western Geotechnical Consultants Limited, dated October 31st, 2014, and the addendum to that assessment dated December 11th, 2014 be received. And fourth, in regards to the flood exemption, whereas zoning bylaw number 25, 1987 establishes a minimum floodplain setback of 15 meters from the natural boundary of the sea, and whereas the owner of Lot A, District Lot 2337, Plan EP 337, proposes to construct a permanent habitable structure within the floodplain setback, and whereas the district has received the report from Western Geotechnical Consultants Limited dated October 31st, 2014, and the addendum dated December 11th, 2014, signed and sealed by Benjamin A. Smale, PEng, in which the engineer certifies that Lot A may be safely used despite the hazard of ocean flooding. as long as the proposed permanent habitable structure must be placed a minimum of 2 meters above the highest high tide mark. And resolved that the owner of Lot A, District Lot 2337, Plan EP 337, be exempted from Section 322 II of zoning bylaw number 25, 1987, on condition that the proposed permanent habitable structure must be placed a minimum of 2 meters above highest high water tide, and resolved that no building permit be issued in respect to Lot A or any lot in which Lot A is subdivided until the owner has granted to the district covenant under Section 219 of the Land Sale Act, in which the owner covenants that any permanent habitable structure must be placed a minimum of 2 meters above the highest high water mark, which covenant shall be contained as a schedule. Which covenant shall contain the schedule of the Western Geotechnical Consultants Limited Report dated October 31st, 2014, and the addendum dated December 11th, 2014.
Thank you for that, and then I won't have to read out the motions before we address them. If there's any questions or questions or clarifications of the report in front of us? Councillor Seegers?
Thank you. With the Section 219 covenant, does that have a save harmless clause for the district? Is that part of what that entails?
Speaking with our legal advice, they advised us that it's not necessary to have a save harmless.
So the answer to the question is no.
Yeah, no, sorry.
And the second follow-up is that there is no liability coming to the district. We don't need a save harmless clause in order to have all liability rest with the property owner?
Correct.
Okay. Same question. We just ask it from 3 or 4 different ways to make sure we get the same answer. Okay. Any other clarifications of the recommendations before I look for discussion on the recommendations? I would just like to say I'm, first of all, pleased that it's coming forward to us in the way it is. In particular, that the council is being asked to directly address the variances, and so they're not just happening without public knowledge and without council's consideration, and that we have in fact received the geotechnical reports, which provide the technical expertise that if, in terms of the variance that'll have to be in place and the explanations. Any discussion from council? If not, I'll look for somebody to move recommendations 2 through 4. Councillor Inkster, Councillor Shanks seconding. Further discussion? Councillor Wright. Yeah, go ahead.
Your worship, I was going to ask you if you would do them individually.
Yes, we
rather
could.
than a group.
We could. We've got all of them moved, but we can vote individually. So let's first vote on item 2, and we'll actually come back to this. If council approves adoption, I'll read out the adoption to do that. So item 2, all those, any discussion of adoption of zoning bylaw number 25, 1987? All those in favor? Item 3, that the assessment from Western Geotechnical Consultants dated October 31st and the addendum be received. And that's actually already moved and seconded. We're just going to vote on that. All those in favor? And then we move to the complicated item 4, which again has been moved and seconded. So any discussion of item 4? Minimum floodplain, report again, and the resolution requiring the minimum setback and the building permit covenants. Okay, if there's no discussion, I'll call for those, all those in favor. And any opposed? One opposed, but that carries. Thank you. And I actually would like to move, even though we've moved adoption, I'd like to move to item 8.1A, which is the bylaw in front of us, bylaw number 25-276, 2016, the Gaines property. which is a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25, 1987 by rezoning a property of 6801 Sunshine Coast Highways from Public Assembly 1 to Residential 1. And we notice on that page that it's been read a first time in August 3rd, public hearing of August 24th, second and third reading on the 21st of September, approved by the Ministry of Transportation and Highways on October 13th, and a motion to adopt for today, Councillor Lutz, Councillor Seegers. All those in favor of adoption? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And thank you for that work, and good luck. Hope it's a good residential building that serves you and your family well. Moving on to item 8.2, if I can get my agenda. We have two notice of title. The first one is item 8.2, and I don't see John Hart to speak to it, but corporate officer. And first, can I stop? I should have started by welcoming and introducing our new corporate officer, Joanne Frank, who started work exactly a week ago, Wednesday of last week. But this is the first public meeting, so welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry I missed that at the beginning.
It's okay. Your
And
worship,
could you get a little closer to the microphone?
Oh, sure. Your worship, I did take the opportunity to talk to Mr. Hart before tonight, just to get a high-level sense of these files. And so in terms of 8.2 Lau, staff did forward a registered letter advising Mr. Lau that this would be considered tonight. The registered letter came back unopened. That doesn't leave us in any procedural, with any procedural issues. Council can still continue tonight to consider this. An overview is basically this file's been ongoing for quite a long time. Staff have made every effort to help the property owner comply. Early this spring, Mr. Lau indicated he wished to work on rectifying the outstanding issues, but he has apparently since March, although there's been several conversations, has not proceeded with rectifying any of the situation.
Thank you for that, and we'll look for a motion to receive the report and the clarifications that have just been provided. Councillor Wright, Councillor Seegers, all those in favor. Anything additional to add to the report? Okay, thank you for that. Any questions from council? And thanks for letting us know that the registered letter did come back, but again, it's not an issue. So do I have somebody to move the second recommendation directing to file a notice in the Land Title Office? Councillor Wright, Councillor Shanks, any discussion? All those in favor? That's carried. Unfortunate, but people need to stay in touch with the process. And item 8.3, I'll start with a recommendation to receive the report. Councillor Seegers and Councillor Inkster. All those in favor? And I'll look, that's carried, and I'll look to the corporate officer if you have anything to add on this report.
Thank you, Your Worship. In the case of this particular one, the registered letter was accepted by Mr. Knight. He is aware that council is considering this evening. He has expressed he understands the reason for this notice on title being placed, and he's expressed to staff no concerns with it being placed.
Okay. If the property owner has no concerns, I'll just go straight to the vote. The motion, yeah, moved motion number 2, Councillor. I think it's already been moved, wasn't it not?
Yes, it had.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And now to item 8.4, and this is also amended. Request for decision. First, and this is regarding the Porpoise Bay Foreshore license renewal, which is a license that we hold from the province. Recommendation number 1 is that we receive the report. Councillor Lutz and Councillor Wright, all those in favor? Thank you. And again, does Planning Department want to speak to this, or yes, Mr. Thompson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I am giving this presentation on behalf of our planning tech who actually did the report. But yeah, this is regarding the foreshore license application for a 0.44 hectare portion of East Porpoise Bay. So here is the location of it within East Porpoise Bay. So it is this long strip of the foreshore here, immediately adjacent to the On the Edgewater development. So the district has held this license area since 2011. Affecting this license area is also a section 2919 covenant for the design and construction associated with the ONI development for a public walkway. The completion of this construction is still pending, but we are expecting, we're talking with the developer somewhere within the spring, having that pathway finished. So a bit more about, this is, of course, within our variety of policies, the 2006 Parks and Open Spaces Master Plan, connecting downtown to Sandy Hook through pedestrian trails. The OCP does talk in a great deal about acquiring public access along the waterfront, in all places in Sechelt. So short-term, some of the financial implications with this, there is an application fee of $210, and long-term, would be responsible for the maintenance of essentially this park space, and the maintenance, garbage collection, etc. So essentially, the analysis is an important access point to Porpoise Bay foreshore for the community, and is a good community asset for in the now and into the future. So the recommendation is that council endorses a license and replacement application to the Crown for the approximate 0.44 hectares of the Porpoise Bay foreshore, BC license number 241618, for a 30-year license period. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the report is before us, and with pictures and illustrations. Any questions of the report before we look to the motion? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. The lease expires in April 2017. Any sense of how long it will take to get approval for the new lease from the Crown?
I'm not sure at this time, though.
I hope we get it done before the April 2017, that's all. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, and the second recommendation is that we endorse license the application. Somebody like to move that? Councillor Seegers, Councillor Lutz, second. Any discussion of the application for the Crown lease? All those in favor? That's carried. And it will be what I've seen already of the completed part. It's a great asset already. So someday there'll be a nice walkway from the spit at Marmot Road all the way along. New business there being none. Business items, item 10. We move first to a Environment Canada license renewal, an agreement for the surface weather station, and a recommendation that this report be received is moved by Councillor Shanks and Councillor Seegers. All those in favor? Thank you. And the report was written by the Corporate Officer Division. Any speaking to this report, or it's fairly straightforward? No, okay. Thank you. And Councillor Seegers moves and Councillor Wright seconds that Council authorizes the Mayor and Corporate Officer to endorse a renewal of the license agreement with Environment Canada for a surface weather station at the Sunshine Coast Regional Airport for a period of 5 years commencing January 1st, 2017. All those in favor? That's carried. Moving to item 10.2, probably the largest item on the agenda this evening, which is a report accompanying the Deloitte post-project completion review, and the recommendations are that the report from the Director of Finance be received and that the post-project completion review for Water Resource Centre be received. Moved by Councillor Seegers, Councillor Shanks. All those in favor? And I'd look to the Director of Corporate and Financial Services if you have anything you'd like to add to your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as you see, this is the result of the Auditor General's recommendation that a review, post-construction review of the Water Resource Center be conducted. Deloitte LLP was contracted to do that. As you know, it took a while to get here. 9,000 files were sent to them. That did raise concern with them. At one point early on, it was actually when I originally started, my first few days, it was requested actually that we would cull that information, and actually we refused to do that and said we really wanted it to be an unbiased report. So they received everything we had, and as my final comment here is we did not provide them with any opinions nor edit their report in any way. This is their results from looking through over 9,000 files.
Thank you. I did read the terms of reference and the Finance Committee report that's initiated this on August 15th. As you say, it came directly out of a recommendation from the Auditor General for local government. Reading those over and reminded me of the avalanche of work we were dealing with in the spring and summer of 2015, and this was part of it. I'm not sure if our terms of reference were as exact and precise as they needed to be. However, we do have a good report with lots of information, and it is a companion piece to last week when a number of the people involved in the project were here to celebrate and share the awards that they've received over the last year. And this is the balance of that. The two have to go hand in hand. Yes, it's getting lots of technical awards. And yes, there are lots of concerns about the process that got us to there and the life cycle costs and the ongoing financial costs which will be built into the budget. However, this is only an important report if we actually learn from it and act on it. So I would like to see a motion that refer this back to staff, to the senior management team for review and analysis in light of improving procedures in the district of Sechelt. Councillor Shanks, Councillor Inkster, any discussion of the report or of the motion? Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's going back to staff for further review and any changes or updates we need to make with our processes. I would also encourage members of the public interested, because I know there's a number of members of the public, those that were here to witness the awards being presented, and I think a number here tonight in reference to this document, that I would encourage them to read it as thoroughly as they can, because there's some good information in here on the history of that project that has an indication of it having gone on for 10 years. So it wasn't, as some would have indicated, that it was a 2 to 3 year project. It was actually a project that had went on with for a number of years in planning over a number of councils and in the securing of funding over 2 councils, not with 1 council, as some also thought. So as our staff has indicated, there's no opinions given. It was just files provided to Deloitte to do this study. So I'm assuming based on that, and I hope the public understands that it's a fairly factual document with, as far as I can tell, no bias, but some good information that I would say again that the public should read, and read some of the important sections. Thank you. And I'll be supporting the motion. Yeah.
Good. Do I read that as a generous step towards ownership of the final product? It was a 10-year work with many councils involved, and therefore part of the process. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Councillor Lutz. Oh, I'm sorry. The solid lights speak to who is first.
Thank you. I'd also like staff to, we're looking at what can be improved. I'd like them to also identify the items in here that they indicated that we actually did well, and the pieces that are missing that we need to follow up on, how are they being addressed? And I mean, I was talking with our director of, I don't know what her title is.
Public Works and Operations.
Okay, so Nikki Hoagland, I was talking with her before, and one of the things she indicated was, it said in here that LEED Gold Standard certification has not been registered. She said it has been applied for now. So there are some things that have, since even this report, have been addressed or are being addressed. So I'd like to see those come forward as well as part of that to give us the complete picture on this. All right, thank you.
I might need to come back and ask for council to ask staff to actually provide a report, which wasn't in the first motion. It was mostly just to go back to them. So we might have to make it more clear that we want a report to come back assessing this. Councillor Lutz.
Thank you. I don't think I can be quite as positive as Councillor Inkster. I really hope that the community does take the opportunity to read this report. It's, for me, was really good to have it all in one package, to be able to go through and have all those reminders of the milestones that occurred through this whole process. And I am a little bit disappointed that it isn't a bit stronger, but I understand the writer has to err on the side of caution. But it is very important reading for our community. Just this past week, I had the opportunity to take a group on a tour, and they were from the third largest city in China, and the main member of the delegation was the director of the environment, and he was very interested. He was very impressed, as most people who tour the plant are. But his very most telling question to me was, how in the world did a community of our size ever allow the cost to get to over $20 million? And I found that very interesting. It isn't really covered in this report. My answer to him was not without controversy.
And they were Canadian dollars. I'm hoping that this report, and I will look for a motion to amend my earlier referral to staff, that in fact that staff assess the report, the Deloitte report, and report back to council on to help us digest what's here and what isn't here, both in the positive and the negative. And as I heard one senior manager say, what isn't said is as important as what is said. But so if we can amend that with no objections, then we have that direction from council that we want this to actually be a report back to us. Could be verbal, non-verbal, but it needs to be a report that comes back and we can discuss. And I'm hoping this will be a really large step in the reconciliation of the difficulties the community has had. We have an award-winning plant, and we have a full and fuller understanding of the many years that it took the community through to get that. That's all we need. Understanding should lead to shared understanding, which should lead to reconciliation. We all are on the same page. Okay. Did we vote on this? Yes, we voted on.
No.
Okay, Councillor Inkster and Councillor Seegers. All those in favor? That's carried. And we've done the community forest, so we move to item 11, which is councillor reports, and I will start on my right, if you don't mind, with Councillor Seegers.
Thank you. We were looking at the how long it's been, and it's been a few weeks since we actually had a council meeting and reported out to the public. So I attended the RTC open house. It was good to see a lot of attendance there by people in the community, including those who were not happy with what's being proposed. So I made sure that I brought the people who weren't happy together with the developers. So they actually had a conversation. It was good. Municipal Hall Library meeting. As you know, the library is looking at moving forward. We're going to be having another meeting, I believe, this Friday. I attended the Chamber of Commerce Awards of Excellence, as did all of council. It was really nice to see the community support our local businesses. I want to say, the IGA, I'd actually talked to the owner of IGA a couple of days before the event, and he'd indicated he was going to be away for that event, but he said his managers were so excited that they had been nominated, and because they really take their job seriously and providing support and service to the community. So it was really nice to see them win. They were ecstatic. I attended the Black Boot event, second year in a row, and my family was actually here that weekend for a visit. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. So my family was here that weekend, and some people said I needed to introduce them to people because most people in the community didn't even know I had a family. So it was nice to have them here and have them be out and introduced to the community. Along with a number of the other council members, I did my stint with the Salvation Army Kettle campaign, and that's always a lot of fun. They didn't give us bells this year because they said the people at the mall where we're at really get tired of those bells after a while, so we got shakers instead. I briefly attended the night at the Longhouse for Gary Feschuk to support his rehabilitation. And finally, the Library Festa Volunteer Party. So it's been not a busy couple of weeks, but a lot of fun and interesting things coming out. I am going to be taking part with the Royal LePage people in the supper on the 14th at the YMCA, I believe it is. And I'll be serving I think I'm cleaning up or something. So it'll be fun.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you for that report and for the volunteer work you and other councillors do in the community. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. Also attended the RTC open house and the Chamber of Commerce Awards night. That was a fun night. Did a stint with Councillor Seegers with the kettle at the mall for the Salvation Army. Also did a stint with Angela from the Water Resource Center at the same kettle. It was kind of fun. Got a chance to know Angela a little bit and have an hour-long chat with her. I missed the event at the Longhouse. I had a meeting with the West Sechelt Community Association that evening. Also attended the Water Resource Tour with Councillor Lutz, attended Public Works and Planning, and also the Infrastructure Committee meeting for the Regional District, Board meeting, and the Corporate Services Committee meeting for the Regional District. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Inkster.
Thank you. I won't cover a lot of the other things that were mentioned. Just wanted to mention a couple of things. The Chamber event, the Business Awards, I thought that was well done. We'll see how that progresses. I know a number of years ago they used to do awards locally. We did volunteer appreciation, and we've done other awards. So it'll be interesting to see as they go forward if they continue to have, I think it's 13 categories, because that means that every year you have to find 13 businesses that get the support within the community. Usually after a number of years, there's some duplications that may occur and things like that. Love to see thousands of businesses, then you would see more awards and categories. And I also wanted to mention the parade and the singing that happened before the parade, and the parade that was in downtown Sechelt, the lighting of the lights. I remember when that first happened in 2011, all the people were actually right here when they first did it, and there was three trucks when we first did that in 2011, and now they go all the way down the road, down Cowrie, much like Canada Day, There's a lot of people. It's kind of like Canada Day with darkness, more lights, and people are cold. But the SDBA serves hot chocolate, and there's lots of things going on downtown. And I would say last year was probably 1,000, 1,500 people. There's probably 2,000 people downtown or more this year. So kudos to those organizing that event. And I think it might be the same person that organized the successful Chambers event. So they're doing a good job of good things in Sechelt. I'm not sure if it was the same organizer, but I know it was in past. So those were two really good events to warm up our winter months. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, not wanting to pass on any further information on some of the other committee meetings and other meetings that I attended that have already been mentioned. I would just mention again my attendance and participation at the annual Parade of Lights. I believe 25, 26 entrants this year. Awesome displays, and it's interesting to note that when the mayor and I were the judges last year, the first and second place winners last year were reversed this year.
Oh. That's good.
And I was pulled in to be one of the judges, and it seemed to work very well. They just want to grow it as much as they possibly can, and I think that'll happen. And they would especially like to see more members of the car club decorating their cars. I'm not sure that's likely to happen. But all in all, a very good effort by Jill, I believe, who works at Deluxe Landscaping, and her husband is on staff.
Is on staff.
So it's good. Thank you.
Yeah. And Councillor Lutz.
Thank you. I will skip a few of the things that have already been talked about. I did speak about the tour with the Chinese delegation. I had the opportunity of doing the count for the Light the Lights. Our mayor was away, and also one of the judges for the lit trucks. I attended the Youth Action Committee meeting last Friday, and that's a committee of anyone who works with youth in our community, not just Sechelt. And I was really upset to hear that drugs are still a really big issue, and fentanyl is in our community. Our RCMP have been armed with the nasal spray to antidote if they even just touch it, doing a search. So talk about work hazards. That's pretty scary. I attended the night at the Longhouse, the fundraiser for wellness for Gary Feschuk, and was quite honored to be chosen as a witness. And because of that, I would like to take a minute and say that again, the Sechelt Nation presented their heritage and culture to us. And this is the first time that I've gotten to see the dancers from Kinnickinnick Elementary School. They're from grade 4 to grade 7. And they did all of the traditional dancing, including the costumes. And it was just amazing. I'm so pleased that I was able to be there and witness not just the cultural, but the whole feeling that was there that night, listening to members speak their respect for Gary and their wishes for his recovery. And it was really good to see him. He was very moved by it all. The other thing I'd like to speak for a moment about is I attended Canadian Union Public Employees Local 801. That's a school district workers general meeting 2 weeks ago. And I purposely attended knowing that they would take that opportunity before their members to honor the late Celia Fisher. She had been a custodian, a special education teaching assistant, director at the regional district, member of the school district board, and always active trying to get the recreation facilities built here on the coast. And it just was good to be able to honor her with my union brothers and sisters. That's my report.
Thank you for that report. And I'll conclude the reports just chronologically. I was away, as a couple have mentioned, in the first weekend of November 26th through to 28th. My mother turned 90, so we had a birthday celebration in Victoria. But what was interesting was the Victoria Truck Light Parade was there the first night that I stayed overnight, and it happened to be, I didn't go out to see it, but it was convening around the hotel that I was at. It was over an hour in length. There was remarkable trucks, marching bands, singing floats, musical floats. It was huge. And when I mentioned it, they said, well, it only started with 15 or 20 trucks at one time. So they're suggesting that Sechelt might deck out everything, including the Coast Car Club and others. And that was quite an event. In terms of cultural events here on the coast, I just wanted to mention the Seaforth Highlander Cadet Corps has an annual Ortona Christmas dinner, which is a partly celebration, but it's mostly a remembrance of a significant event in World War II where the Seaforth Highlanders were fighting in Italy. And it's interesting both to go to support the cadet program, which I think is one of the strongest youth programs on the coast, and also to see how young people who are interested in military careers also acknowledge and understand the terrible side of what war actually is. I also wanted to end just by saying I've spent the last 2 days at a conference in Richmond, actually put on by the Local Government Leadership Academy, Gordon McIntosh leading, and it was a sort of a midterm check-in for mayors and chairs of regional districts. So I was in a room with 30 odd, or approximately 30 mayors and a few chairs of regional districts. And at one point in the morning, we went around and listed all of the items we wanted to discuss over the 2 days, and then voted on them in terms of priorities. And I went primarily because I wanted to discuss and learn and identify issues of aligning council and senior management team and issues that are important to our organization. But the number one issue and the number two issue, which I didn't vote for, I just want to say in advance, of those 30 people, and the first one got 20 votes, was what do we do about the rogue councillor? And the second one was the wannabe mayor. So it's quite universal across all of BC that there are one or two councillors that mayors don't know how to work with, and there's always one or two that want to be mayor. They had no solutions, I just want to say, but that wasn't why I went, but I thought it was quite remarkable. And I actually left those sessions today thinking, as we've said before, this council is a very well civil, it works well in our public meetings and in our private meetings. And I think we need to acknowledge that. And you don't know until you go and talk to others. And this wasn't, Nanaimo wasn't there, Lanceville wasn't there, none of the real disaster cases were there. These are just all the ordinary ones you might know from Vernon and McBride and wherever throughout the province. So that was interesting for me. And I did learn what I wanted to learn and some things that I can bring back to council and senior management team in terms of those issues. So moving on to 11.2, is there a further report from the SCRD board council representative, or did you do that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Only having been the director for 5-6 days now, there hasn't been too much. There's only been 2 meetings.
They were both day long, weren't they?
One was December the 1st, which was all day long, and one was December the 2nd, which was all day long. On December the 1st, basically it was just a financial overview because they're starting budget at the regional district. And there were some interesting carry forwards were discussed for the various areas, and Just an overview of budget, and then the question was asked of all the regional directors, so what do you think the tax increase should be? And the answers were quite unusual. They ranged from 0 to 8%. And there was actually somebody thought an 8% increase was reasonable. That was not me. So having said that, the second day was basically was delegations, and all of the delegations that get support from the regional district, and there was about 20 of them that came and made presentations to the regional board. And I wrote down some of the percentage increases, and these are through memorandums of understanding that the regional district has with the various organizations. And one of them is 2.8%. These are already agreed to. One is 5.9%. One is 11%. And I'm going, ooh, this is going to be an interesting budget session. Mm-hmm. So it was a very interesting day. Had lots of fun, and went home and had a drink after that. That's all I have for the regional district. Thank you, Worship.
I hope our taxpayers can afford a drink. Okay, and moving then on to visitor information statistics, sorry. Motion to receive 12.1. Thank you, Councillor Seegers and Councillor Lutz. All those in favor? Any comments on those reports? We do have the 3 quarters now, so we can see that there's some growth and a fairly active visitor center. And moving then to 12.2, council correspondence, a motion to receive. Councillor Seegers and Shanks, all those in favor? That's carried. These all are received, of course, just for our information and for the information of the public. They are also dealt with within the organization appropriately if those that have and require a response or questions or things to come back. Notice the very first one, for example, Sunshine Coast Drag Racing Association, that'll have to come back to us as a committee so we can actually approve those dates when we can compare them to a calendar in one of the committees. And I don't know if we really needed the last 69 pages, which is a part of the work of the Member of Parliament. It isn't even addressed to council. It's just addressed to whomever. And it's good to know, but she'll also send us all the same stuff when she comes to Sechelt in the spring. So information, but we want to try and keep the council correspondence to council correspondence and not everything that comes from the provincial or federal elected officials either as well. Anything in that correspondence councillors would like to identify or mention? I did mention the Coast Car Club, or the drag racing, sorry. Give people a minute. Again, a large one from Richmond on the George Massey Tunnel Replacement Project. I suppose it's useful for information, but not really council business. Okay, seeing no immediate discussion, all those in favor of a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Adjourned. 12 minutes after 8. Thank you for being here. And Pam, first question or comment of the night.
They want a variance to get closer to the water, to get all the proper word, but it's like, why? The next guy that comes along that wants a variance, is he gonna get it too? I mean, why bother even having a rule? Well, why have a height rule restriction? Because they always get 2 extra floors.
Is that a rhetorical question or do you want an answer?
I'd like an answer, but
okay.
I'd like to know, I mean, I'm gonna get a
I don't think we approve every variance that come before us, and I can think of some heights and others that we've said no to. Some of them actually are said no to at the planning department. By the time they come to us, they've also actually been looked at by the planning staff too. In the one that you looked at tonight, it's been before us several times, and several times.
It went to the advisory planning commission, and when they was there twice, and they said both times, not enough information. It goes to the planning committee. Oh, and they just sort of, well, that's okay, everything's cool, but they don't talk about what they said at the commission. Then it comes here, and well, they get to have it.
Council approved it tonight because they agreed with the fact that there was no change to the historical footprint, so the proximity to the high tide mark is no different than it has been for some 50 years, and it fit in conjunction with neighboring areas, and that we were assured that the geotechnical report showed that there'd be no harm to the public or other from the building at that proximity. And that's the reasons why we looked at it and decided we could approve it in this case.
In the last 50 years is good, because that happened way before there was any rules, before Sechelt was even anything.
I know, but there's,
Now we have rules, and then, oh, they get to put the stairs closer, and then they get an extension here, and it's like, you know, why bother? Why bother having an advisory commission to begin with? Because nobody listens to them. Stuff comes, is here at ethics planning, and it hasn't even, they don't even discuss it. They haven't even got minutes.
well, I'll encourage all councillors to listen and read the minutes of the Advisory Planning Commission. I'm sure they do. It's a complex balance between moving forward with new rules and regulations and respecting the traditions and human growth patterns of the past. We try and balance that. It doesn't satisfy everyone, but that's actually what we try and do. We actually do think of what Sechelt was like 50 years ago and what it's going to be in 50 years, and council approved that one because they thought it fit within that spectrum and should be supported. Porridgey, I think was the adjective you used.
Is that what's gonna happen in front of RTC? They're gonna say, oh, well, you know, and put a big, only, they won't have 50 years ago when that beach hasn't changed, they have a big riprap wall and cement lights and.
I don't know what'll happen to the foreshore at RTC, but the project itself, when it comes forward, will be assessed in terms of the existing OPC official community plan and the community input over the last 10 years on the density in the village and what they wanted to see here. And that's how we'll look at that.
It's gonna be the same thing, you'd say, oh, well, you know, it's 50 years, are they gonna leave it, the beach part, leave it along the water?
Well, we don't know yet.
Leave it like it has been for 50 years, are they gonna rip wrap it and put in cherries and streetlights?
I think your concerns are shared by council that we can maintain as much natural habitat as we can.
That beach hasn't changed in 60 years, it doesn't need anything to stay the way it is.
Yeah. Well, council will remember that. No, I know.
I just see, like, you know, we have height restrictions.
Yeah.
And then bang, not just one floor, but 2 stories above the height restriction. Oh, sorry, that's not a story because it isn't exactly so many feet.
And we don't count stories, we count height. And the height is within the official community plan and within standards that we think are appropriate for those areas. Other areas may get different responses from council, but in the urban containment area, especially in the village density, councils long before this one, but others sitting on the table will remember that there was a strong push for higher density. You can't have higher density without height. They two come together. So maybe people didn't explain that. Maybe they said density, 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 and they somehow thought that was going to be his height.
Getting higher,
Yep.
pretty soon we're gonna have a paid fire department, and that won't be fun. Or you're gonna have to come up with some money for a brand new truck with a taller ladder.
Don't disagree with that. Councillor Shanks would like to comment on the general issues, or you want to push your microphone?
Our planning committee, I think.
Microphone.
Defense of our planning committee, I think there's generally a good round discussion on any topic that's presented to us. And with respect to minutes of the advisory planning committee not being available to us, it's difficult to make a decision when we don't have those minutes.
Well,
And
then why are
Well, that's one referral. Let's bear that in mind. That's one referral. We have others which are included in our reports.
Yeah, we have a process, and we aren't going to let that process stop because of one or two items, but
Well, who's keeping count? One person. It sounds like it's yourself.
no, Councillor Shanks, let's not argue with the community. The community is always right. No, honestly, I believe that. We want to hear, and I don't want us to get into a situation where this, I know, and we're hearing you.
Going to the commission for quite a while now, just to see what's happening. And there's a lot of minutes that don't get to the next level, but they're discussing it and making decisions.
Yeah, our new director of planning, development services, and our new corporate officer will ensure that the process of committee meeting, all committee things folding into the right ones will be improved. Anything else? Not yet, but we will. And it'll be on their plate, but the new corporate officer makes a big difference over the last 2 years. Mr. Nixon.
Yes, thank you. I heard something mentioned about addressing the leads deficiency on the sewer plant. And what I'd like to point out is I have an outstanding request in for the cost of the
Yes.
energy system. And what's behind that request, I'll put my cards on the table here, was the budget or proposal for that energy system was for 30 kilowatt, which would give us 3 leads points based on 3% energy savings. What we got up there is 12 kilowatt system. Based on the energy use, we're looking at about a 1% reduction in cost, which would be 1 lead point.
Okay.
So that's what's documented in the council minutes and so on and so forth. Also, with respect to energy claims, there are rules, guides, standard codes in Canada about making such claims. I'm going to try and hold you accountable on that. So get prepared for questions on the shark energy system as well.
Okay. And the, yes, so we'll have to look. Yeah, none of us know any of the details of the Leeds application, but thank you for letting us know that that's one of the items in that application that you'll be watching for, and others, and certainly the energy consumption of the new plant is of interest to all of us, not just the energy supplement from the solar, but the actual new energy requirement. That's some significant part of the costing that was not in the in the non-existent business case, but
Available on the internet. You can go and actually figure out within $1 what that place has made over the last since it started up. And we're looking in the range of about $1,000 a year at 7 cents a kilowatt. It'd be a long payback on that.
yeah.
Now that was documented as going to be a demonstration to the public about these types of systems. And I'm going to hold you to it.
Might not be the right demonstration.
Well, it would be valuable one way or the other.
Absolutely, yeah. No.
Ontario already figured it out.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you very much. Well, good evening.
Hi, it's not specifically, well, it is related to the Gaines problem.
Okay.
I was curious as to why you're accepting a 2-year-old geotech report that very specifically says that it's not valid after 2 years of the date, which is October 14th, 2014. I think it's item 7.
Yeah. I would have to ask planning staff who are no longer here on. Yeah.
Says that it's not, that it is invalid if construction or building is not started within 2 years.
Yeah. We accepted that report as we moved into first reading and public hearing, which was well within that 2-year point, and that's what we're processing things on. The fact that we complete our process because things take a long time in the
The report very specifically says that construction must have begun or started within that 2 years.
I'll review that.
Yeah, so the question is that as far as, geotech reports, are you going to be in the habit of accepting geotech reports that are 2 years, 4 years, 6 years old? specifically when there's a disclaimer stating that it is invalid if construction hasn't started within 2 years.
I'll just take that on advisement, but thank you. It's a good question. It's a good question. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll see you all